Hello, it's Liz Priestley, and I am here on Perched on Hollywood Boulevard.
What's going on, everybody? I am your host, Lee Walker, and as you can tell from our guest today, we have Liz Priestley on. Liz, how you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. So you have an array of experience, actress, violinist, dancer,
Yeah,
opera,
I've done a lot.
theater, orchestra.
Yes.
How did it all begin and where?
Well, for me, it began kind of around age 4.
Hmm.
Um, and it's one of those things where you have like older siblings who do things, and then you look up to them and you start going like, "Well, that looks like fun. I want to do that." And
Yeah.
I have 5 sisters, 3 of whom are older than I am. And when I was, really young, they were involved in different, they all played instruments. My older 2 sisters did theater in our high school and stuff like that. And I remember being younger and being like, well, that looks like fun. I want to do those kinds of things. So I started playing violin around age 4.
Hmm.
And I kept that up for about 19-ish years. I mean, I can still play and everything, but I haven't taken lessons in a little while. But there's like the occasional audition where they'll be like, "Oh, we're looking for an instrumentalist," so I have to make sure I can still do it. Um, and and same thing with singing. Like I had an older sister who took voice lessons for a little while, and around the time when I was about 14, 15, when I was like, I don't think I want to do violin professionally. I think maybe I want to try something else. Um, my parents were like, try something else musical because we don't want you to lose that gift. And I was like, let's try singing. And then it turns out I was better at singing than violin in the first place, which is kind of hilarious. But um, and then theater was sort of a two-part thing. Like like I said, I had older siblings that did theater, and we would go see their plays, and I was just enthralled by that. Like, I remember seeing backstage, like, snapshots, like Polaroids of my older sister, getting ready for the plays, and she'd be there with like the curlers in her hair, and like the bathrobe, and she'd be putting on makeup in the mirror. And I just thought that was so glamorous, and like, I definitely want to do that. But then when I was about 7, around there, I remember that's when I first started asking the questions of like, who's making these movies that I love watching? Like, yeah, I know, theater, I get it, plays, but like, how are they making movies? And then really kind of learning, oh, there's this job called an actor, and it's basically you get to play pretend for a living and get paid for it. And I was like, ding ding ding, that's the job for me. um so I was drawn to that from a young age. Movies just fascinated me, and I once I figured out that was like a thing that you could do, I was like, oh yeah, yeah, how do I what do I gotta go to school for that, like what, you know um and then when I went to college, there was a little bit of a battle. My parents were like, "We really want you to go with the music thing," because they felt that my stronger talent was in music, and I get that because in some ways I do think it's a more difficult industry because you can't get like you could be a bad actor and still put out a movie,
Hmm.
and whole careers have been made about that. But if you're a bad musician, you can't fake that. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
I think from their point of view, it was like, you have musical talent. Like, this is rare. Use that. And I was just like, yeah, I know, but the passion is the acting. Um, so I went to school for musical theater as kind of a compromise.
Hmm.
And that's where the dancing training came in. I mean, I took a little bit of dance here and there and like gymnastics and stuff before that, but that's where the intensive dancing happened. It turned out I was good at that too, and I had a few instructors who were like, yeah, if you had started on this when you were a kid, you probably could have done this. And I was like, well, yeah. So that was encouraging. And yeah, so that's where it started for me, was really just looking up to my siblings and then realizing, like I said, watching movies and being like, wait a second, these are like these don't just appear out of the ether. Someone's making this. How does that work? And then just being immediately enthralled. But like people getting paid to be other people for that is amazing. I was like, you can make a living doing that? Yes. Sign me
Do you remember any movies in particular when you were a kid that you watched that made you think of that?
Yeah, it's really, this is such a strange story and I'm almost embarrassed to tell it, but when I mean, well, we lived around the corner from a Blockbuster,
Mhm.
which was a dangerous thing in, the 90s, because it was like you had such great movies coming out, and I was there, every weekend we were there just renting stuff, and I'd just be like,
Yeah.
but I have to say, and this is so embarrassing, when I was a kid, and we're talking like 4, 5, 6 years old ish, I used to sneak downstairs where our VCR was at like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning and watch our VHS copy of Gone with the Wind. Like before school. Like this was it's and Gone with the Wind is like a 3 hour movie. Um but my parents used to come down, for breakfast, make the coffee, and they'd find me on the couch just like, you know, I don't know why, because as an adult, of course, looking back, it's a painful movie to get through. I mean, I still love it, but as an adult, of course, it's extremely problematic, and you're just like, oh my. But as a kid, I just was like, I was really like just like swept up in the grandeur of that story. I loved Scarlett. I loved her dresses. I thought Rhett Butler was just like the dreamboat, and I loved the story. And I totally, of course, as a kid, you gloss over the whole slave factor. Like that's why, as
Yeah.
an adult, I look back and I'm like, well, that probably wasn't healthy for me. But I used to do this all the time. That was my favorite movie growing up, was Gone with the Wind. And yeah, I still love it. Yeah, it's problematic, but I do, I love it. It's because now it's such a part of my history that I'm just like, no, I love it.
Well,
Oh, I wish I had picked a cooler.
I mean, usually when you hear as a kid, like you're expecting some sort of Disney movie
I
or like
know.
an animated movie of some
Well,
sort.
and there was a period of time, my family will remember, that at Blockbuster, we were renting Disney's Cinderella like on a
Mhm.
weekly. I mean, every time it was my turn to choose, it was Cinderella and something else, but always Cinderella was in the mix.
Yeah.
But we owned Gone with the Wind, so it was easier to,
Yeah.
easier access to it. And I can't imagine why, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, other than the TV was free for 3 hours. I don't know. But I mean, that used to be my thing. I used to get up and be like, yeah, I'm going to go downstairs and watch this movie now. And then do a whole school day, like kindergarten or whatever. It's so bizarre. It's so bizarre.
Well, I can share with you mine. I think I was 11 at the time, and I went and saw it in the theaters. It was Forrest Gump. I saw it in the theaters and then was just obsessed with it. Before it came out on VHS, it was out on pay-per-view, and my parents got mad at me because I spent 12 hours worth of that movie. And at the time, to like rent a
That is
movie,
so much money.
to rent a movie at that
I
time off of
know.
television was like $20.
$20, yeah.
It was
You know.
expensive. So like they
I
made
think
me.
we're around the same age. So I remember, because we didn't even have like cable until I was in high school. So I had friends that, if you got a pay-per-view movie, that's a big deal. So
Yeah,
20 hours worth.
yeah, and they went away, and we had a sitter, and she obviously didn't think anything of it. I just watched it all day, all day. and and then my parents came back, and
Mm.
I was grounded for like 3 weeks, and I never saw that babysitter again.
See,
And I was like 11, which was weird to even have a babysitter being a
right,
male.
yeah, it's a little old, but
But I
yeah,
also had a 10-year-old sister, and my brother was only like not even a year, I believe, at the time.
yeah,
So I
yeah,
can like looking back, I can understand on that aspect of why there was a babysitter. But I was like, I'm 11, I don't need a sitter.
yeah. She wasn't there for you. She was
No,
there.
but
That is,
apparently I did though, because I spent $80 to watch that movie.
yeah. You needed some supervision. I mean, geez, you would have been grounded for months.
I look back as an 11-year-old, I was just fascinated with that movie for some reason. Like when all my friends are, you know, don't care about that movie and they're watching the NFL on Sunday, and I'm sitting there watching Forrest Gump.
Forrest Gump for like the 50th time, right?
Yeah.
I like I said, I have five sisters, so one of the great things about that is that you happen to be in high school or whatever at the same time as other siblings. And my younger sister and I were in high school at the same time, and whenever we would see each other in the hallways,
Hmm.
one of us, and it didn't matter how far down the hallway you were, one of us, if we saw the other, Lieutenant Dan, but I ain't got no legs. Or something about something about different kinds of shrimp, or but more often than not it was Lieutenant Dan, but I ain't got no legs. And we were the only ones that would do that, and people would look at us and be like, "Ugh." And it I like to this day, if um if I see that movie like on cable or whatever, I will text her like something. I'll be like, Jenny, and she'll be like, beef and carrots.
Oh God, that is great. That
It's
is
one of
great.
my favorites. I adore Tom Hanks. I adore him. I mean, how can you
Yeah,
not? But like,
yeah.
it's a great movie. I
And
mean, it's again, that's one of those movies that as an adult, if I go back, I'm like, well, it's a little problematic, but
yeah,
I still love it. I still love it.
I don't know what it is. I mean, Tom Hanks plays Forrest phenomenally. I don't ever really get like that to sit there and watch a movie that long and that like in a row. I just all day it hasn't happened since.
Yeah.
One thing I did find interesting when you were bringing up your schooling, one of the schools that you went to Ithaca College, which
Yeah.
is literally like my backyard.
I know. Liz, this is why we're best friends now, because
Yeah.
you got to explain Ithaca to them, because you either got to say, you bring up Ithaca and they either say, oh, you mean like Cornell? And I'm like, well, Cornell is in Ithaca, so yes.
Yeah.
Or you get the more obnoxious, oh, road trip. And you're
Yeah.
like, that
Yeah.
was a mythical school that doesn't exist. But I am to the college. Yeah, it's so funny. And that I was so happy that I was like, Ithaca, you were like, I know where that is. I was like,
Like I said, it's like my backyard. I'm from
that's
Oswego, New
crazy.
York, and I always love when I get to like chat with somebody who's
Yeah.
from this area because I've lived upstate, but I've also lived on Long Island. So when I would try and explain it to people in New York City and Long Island, to them Poughkeepsie, New York is upstate New York. And I'm like, no, that's still downstate. That's downstate.
What?
Yeah,
Oh my
yeah.
Lord. No, listen, I went to Ithaca, and I had classmates that were from like Canton, New York, and
Hmm.
Wappingers Falls, and I was like, no, that's upstate. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
they're 10 minutes from the Canadian border upstate. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like, that's crazy. Um, no, Ithaca. I mean, right in the middle of that snow belt. I
Oh,
said this to you before. It's like you really learn how to drive if
yeah.
you live up there. I mean, coming back here to Philly, um we get snow, but people, it's like the snowflakes come down and people forget how to function. Like, and I'm like, we get snow. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But when you live and drive in upstate New York in the middle of the snow belt, you learn real quick, fast, and in a hurry. Coming back here, I'm like maneuvering around people. I'm like, whatever, this is
Yeah.
nothing. Yeah, Ithaca definitely prepares you. But I fell for Ithaca on a trick. They trick you. They do the college auditions for the musical theater program in the summer, and it is so beautiful up there in the summer. And that's when I
Yeah.
visited. And of course, I was like, I want to go here. It's so lovely. Then October comes, and you're like, what is this? Ah! It snowed on my graduation in May. We had to do our festivities indoors.
Oh, wow. Wow. Aside from going to Ithaca, you have other schooling experience, the settlement school in Philadelphia, George Washington University. I gotta ask, how do they grade that?
Well, so I mean, Ithaca is somewhat unique in I mean, I know that other schools have this, but I know at Ithaca they don't like to talk about it, but they have a cut system in their school, and they can basically cut you any semester during the first 2 years. And so yeah, so the first 2 years I was there, I just was petrified because they give you like a status. I hate when they talk about this, but they give you a status, and if you talk to the students when they're there, if you're on probation, it's like, oh, Liz is on probation. You know what I mean? Like, oh, she's on
Yeah.
one foot out the door. You know, but it turns out the faculty, they really do know what they're doing. And I remember my last review meeting. I sat there thinking, fully thinking, all right, that's it. I'm getting kicked out of this program. Never made it off probation. They're going to be like, thank you very much, Liz Priestley. Thank you for your college money, but you got to get out. And they told me, we're keeping you. And they said, we figured out pretty early you're the kind of student that needs to be on probation the whole time because it'll force you to work. Because if we say, oh, you're fine, you'll just coast and you'll just be like, I'm fine, I'm fine. And I was like, you're absolutely right. They're absolutely right. That's exactly the kind of student I am. If I know that I'm like, oh, I'm doing all right, then suddenly my A's become C's and D's, and I'm like, what happened? Like, oh yeah, that. So it was what I needed, but at the time I was upset. It was like, you tortured me for 2 straight years. But there's a reason that Ithaca is, one of the top 3 schools for musical theater in the country, is because they know what they're doing up there. So I'm glad, in retrospect, I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I got the training, and it's intense. I mean, it's run like a conservatory, so you don't take classes outside of your major. So it's just music, dance, and acting the whole 4 years. And which is exactly what I wanted. That's
Mhm.
exactly what I wanted. Because I was like, if I'm gonna do this, I need to immerse myself in it and really be like, okay, let me take it seriously. So yeah, I'm glad I did it. But it was intense. I was like, oh god, they're gonna kick me out. I made it through.
That's awesome. After college, you graduate. Where do you go from here?
Well, after college, and again, I think when you go through a program like that, you get very close to the people you're with. So there was like
Hmm.
a mass exodus of my class to move to New York City, and everybody went. It was like you were either in Astoria, Queens, or you were somewhere in Brooklyn. Um, and I was in Queens, but not Astoria because I couldn't afford Astoria. So I was in like Flushing, Jamaica, Queens. And I eventually got to Brooklyn, but I went with everybody else. We did a showcase upon graduation, and a lot of us, I think every single one of us, actually, we all got offers and auditions after our showcase, which is really cool. So I basically, I was in New York. I was working as an actor. I mean, I was very lucky. I didn't have a 9 to 5 really. Um, and I was, performing as an actor. Obviously, my parents helped me too, but it was cool. And then I did a couple shows in New York, not on Broadway. I wasn't that good, but I got a national tour of a musical, and I toured the country for 6 months, which was a phenomenal. I think every actor should do a tour at one point in their life. I think everyone should have that experience. It's such a different life, and it's awesome, but it's stressful in its own way. And I mentioned to you before, my boyfriend and I like to compare notes because he's also an actor, and he was on a tour that was a much bigger budget tour than the one I was on. So he had like the tour that travels with like a crew, and they have roadies, and they're in a city for a week or two, and they have time to kind of look around and explore the place. And my tour was like, you're in a different city every like 2 to 3 days, and you put your own set up, and you have to take your own set down, and it's a very different experience. But it was great, and I loved it. Um, but I did that, and then I moved. I decided, I was like, I need a break from New York. I need a break from that scene, not necessarily acting. Um, and then I moved back here to Philly, and I had my daughter, and I was like, I can do this. I can raise a kid, and I can try to find a way to keep this art form up. And it was really hard. I mean, she's 13 now, so I mean, it was a few years in there of trying to figure out, how do I put food on the table and make sure she has what she needs to do, and also, keep doing my art. Um, and it was really difficult. But the two great things about it is that Philly has a significant theater scene, so there's always stuff going on. So I was always auditioning, and I was doing back to back plays. At one point, I was doing plays at the same time where I had rehearsals every single night of the week for like 2 to 3 different shows.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but it was great in that, again, people in Philly, I don't know if it's just us, but like I feel like we're of a different breed. We're of a different stock. You know what I mean? Um, it's quite common, I feel, to be in a rehearsal with someone who has their kid there, because the actors and the casting people, we all kind of understand it, and we're all in the same boat. So it was a huge blessing in the fact that a lot of people that I worked with were like, yeah, bring your kid, don't worry about it, just bring it to rehearsal. And she would be there, and she would watch, or if it was not appropriate, she'd have her headphones on or whatever. Um, but it was a really great luxury for me to be able to bring her to rehearsals so I could still do what I wanted to do. And I'm very grateful for that. And then the other part of that is, of course, that I had a phenomenal support system at home. So the rehearsals I couldn't bring her to, I had, my parents and various siblings being like, yeah, sure, Cynthia can come over. That's my daughter. She can come over, we'll watch her. So it was great. So I got to just stack credits on my resume and just put them on there and put them on there, and meet really great people and work with really, phenomenal directors, and do really, great shows, and stuff that I've always wanted to do,
Hmm.
and keep working towards my goal, which was ultimately to get into film. So,
You've got 25 theater productions under your belt. When did you decide it was time to make that leap to film from there?
about 2018, I finally I felt that I was financially able to make the push, because it became very clear to me, if I was going to stay in Philadelphia, which is a great, like I said, city for theater, but not necessarily for film, because it's not like New York where,
Hmm.
productions just left and right. And I'm close enough to New York that I can get up there for those things. But it became very apparent to me that I was like, if I'm going to stay here, or if I'm going to make that push from here, then I need to make sure I'm financially secure, because it's
Yeah.
not cheap to live this lifestyle. Um, And so again, I'm putting those 25 credits on there, but I'm working different 9 to 5s all over the place in every industry that you can possibly imagine. I've done it, just to put money in the bank. And then about 2018, yeah, I decided, I'm not getting any younger. I just feel like now is a good time. And I was working as a barista, and I was going on auditions and doing my thing, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna try this. And I called up a friend of mine who later became my boyfriend, and I said, I know you have a manager. Do you know if she's taking on new people? And he was like, sure. So I met with her, and I got signed with her, and then I started booking stuff like almost right away within the first month. Um, I booked my first commercial, and then I started booking some more commercials, and it just kind of took off from there. And then I got cast in a film, and I was like, what? Yeah. So I mean, yeah, I mean, it was like literally 2018 was when it was like midway, about March 2018 was when I was like, okay, time.
Some of the commercials you did, have you seen any of them for yourself?
Yeah, I have. They're so funny. It's funny. I'm glad I did the commercials first and not the
Hmm.
film, because I really did need to get used to like seeing my face. I My first commercial was for Car Sense, and it's a commercial where my friend and I, we have like an iPad type thing, and we're shopping for a car online, and we're speaking in rhyme. And I remember when I shot it being like, this is the most bizarre thing. Like, it's just bizarre, And a matter of fact, it was that day when we shot. I showed up on set, and again, it's my first commercial ever, so I kind of have an idea of what to expect, but I was also like, I have no idea. And I get there, and literally 5 minutes in, the director's like, yeah, so I decided I want to switch parts. So I had to memorize the other girl's part. And she was the one that was going to hold the iPad. And she was also a hand model. So she had lovely, nails and everything. And at the time, I mean, my nails are jacked up right now too. But at the time, I mean, there was nothing on here. It was polish free. And I'm very notoriously hard on my hands. So my cuticles are all ratty. My nails are like 10 different lengths. Like, and the guy was like, can we see your hands? And I showed him my hands, and he's like, cut, can we bring hair and makeup in to give her a manicure, please? They had to stop production to clean my hands. I was like, okay, now I keep them painted. Yeah, but I've seen that commercial, and it gives me agita because there was a line. I've never had this happen to me. The line was a lifetime guarantee of all things. That was the line. And for like 20 minutes, it was the director going, no, no, a lifetime guarantee of all things. And then me going, a lifetime guarantee of all things. No, 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 a lifetime guarantee of all things. A lifetime guarantee of all things. No, no, no. A lifetime guarantee of all things. A lifetime guarantee of all things. Like, I could not keep, we just, for like 20 minutes, like, I literally had to look at the other girl, and I was like, do you hear a difference? Because I don't hear a difference. And she's like, I honestly don't know how you're supposed to say this line. Like, I don't get it. And now when I've seen the commercial, whenever I see it and I see my character go, a lifetime guarantee of all things, I'm like, it was so bizarre. But no, that was a cool one. I've done some silly ones, and then like the last two that I did were, one was for Safe Auto, and I'm supposed to be a cop in New York City, and we
Hmm.
shot it in Uruguay because they were like, it's actually cheaper for us to fly you and three New York actors out to Uruguay to double for New York than it would be to shoot in New York. So I got a free trip to, not a free, well, I mean, it basically was a free trip to South America for like 4 days. And, they paid for my flight and my hotel, and I got a per diem. And Uruguay is known for its steak. I don't know what they're feeding the cattle over there. I need to figure it out pronto because it is the best steak I have ever had. It's like melt in your mouth. I don't know what they're doing to their animals down there, but they've got it. It's amazing. Um, so every time I see that commercial, I laugh a little bit because I'm like, I'm in South America. Uh, and then I did one for the Pennsylvania lottery, which for us here, I don't know who your New York lottery mascot is, but about like in Pennsylvania, we have the groundhog for Groundhog Day that
Hmm.
decides winter and all that. We have what's called Pennsylvania's second most famous groundhog is Phil. I'm sorry. Yeah, no, sorry, Gus. Phil is the famous one. Gus, the groundhog, is the PA lottery groundhog, and he kind of talks like this. And he's like, it was like, I have more people coming up to me about that than anything else. Like, you got to work with Gus? And I'm like, yeah. I got to hand him the lottery card. And that was such a trip because, Gus is an animated CGI character. And that when you're watching it, but when you're there shooting and they have a cardboard cutout of Gus because they're like for height reference, I'm like, what? And then the guy doing Gus's voice is all the way over there. My favorite part of that, though, I have to say, they give you with stuff like that, they need like sounds
Hmm.
for animated characters, right? Because when we're um like I just did and a sniff and like those kind of like verbal clutter kind of
The filler words.
yeah. And so for a CGI character, they have to animate the sounds because Gus might say the line, but then he's and so the very end of shooting, they were like, "Can we have everyone be quiet so we can have Gus just record some sounds?" So it's deathly silent, and then all of a sudden you see the guy just going, hmm, her, 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 and we could not, like, as soon as they yelled cut, I fell out of my chair laughing. It was so funny. I never heard anything like that before. And you see him across the way. He's the sweetest guy, Rob. He's the sweetest guy, and he's just in the microphone. Oh, I was just like,
How did it come up from your manager to go from commercials into film? Because we're gearing up to talk about a really big film that you're in.
kind of a big deal. Yeah. No, I mean, when I signed with her, of course, we talked about what are the kinds of things you want to be submitted for. And I was very direct with her. I said, I don't want to do any more theater. And I told her straight up, I said, I want to be a film actress. I'm not expecting it to happen overnight. I know it won't, but this is what I want to do. She said, okay, no problem. So she had given me film auditions before.
Mm-hmm.
Um and so this was just another one. She gave me the script. She's like, I have an audition for you. It's a couple scenes that they want you to have ready, which is unusual. Usually it's one. Um, you might get through half of that. You know what I mean? But this one, it was 4 scenes that they sent me. So it was a little bit like, oh, that's a lot, but whatever. And I remember I got the script and I looked at it. It didn't have the name on it, but it had like a brief description. And it was basically, young man, Philadelphia, discovers the world of urban cowboys. I think that was the description. And over here somewhere in the ether, I remember reading somewhere in the paper Idris Elba cowboy movie and was like, whoop, well, those two thoughts don't meet in my head for a while. I'm thinking, whatever, urban, whatever. And then as far as my character is like, she looks like she's lived a hard life, which I was laughing about because up until that point, the casting person had only ever seen me as like a very cheerful, like Walmart mom type of. I was like, can I get rough for this one? I said to my manager, "Is that okay?" She said, "Yeah, go for it." So I did. I mean, I looked. I had makeup help, but I also like deprived myself of sleep for a few days, and yeah, it was
Wow.
fun. Well, because I really wanted to look
Yeah.
rough. And again, my focus at this point, and I have to say throughout until the very end, was not about getting the role. Although I would have loved it. It was more about, this casting person. She casts, it's Diane Harry in Philadelphia. She casts for a lot of M. Night Shyamalan stuff. She cast, Chadwick Boseman's one of his last movies, 21 Bridges. It's a big deal. So I was like, I just want her to know that I can do more than the Walmart mom. That's it. I'm just, I'm not saying I'm Hollywood material. I just want her to know, oh, Liz Priestley can do the serious stuff.
Hmm.
So I went in, I did the first audition, and at that point, it's just me and Diane Erie, and she's got a video camera, and I do my thing. She's got me on tape. She sends it in, and then a few days later, I get an email. You got a call back, and you know, please make sure you prepare all the scenes. So I'm like, all right. So this point, I start doing just a little bit of digging because if you get the call back, that's a good indication that they're interested. And, I'm like, at that point, yeah, let me do a little more of my homework. Let me see if I can get a little more background about what the story is, who might be in it. So I start doing my little digging. And I credit my manager for not telling me this ahead of time, but that's when I sort of started piecing together, you know, urban cowboy movie, Black Cowboys, Idris Elba shooting a film in Philly about black cowboys. And I started going, wait a second. There's not two black cowboy movies happening in Philadelphia this summer. It's got to be the same movie. So then I start going, well, who's Idris Elba going to play? Because the story's about a 15-year-old boy. So he's obviously not playing the boy. So then I'm like, well, he must be playing the boy's father. Because at that point, then on my local news, there was a brief segment about Idris Elba spotted in Philly horseback riding. So I'm like, all right. So he's not playing the boy. And then I'm like, he must be playing the father. He has to be.
Hmm.
So I go back and I read through the script and I'm like, this is the mother. Hang on. This is the mother? So then my next thought was, well, they must be looking for a stand-in for Kerry Washington. They gotta be, because they're not gonna go to Philly and just pluck some unknown actress with absolutely no film credits. They have no idea if I can stand in front of a camera and act. And
Hmm.
it's a very different thing than on stage, right? So I'm like, they must be looking for, or Lupita, or, maybe they're bringing in, I don't know, somebody from Black Panther, right? Like,
Hmm.
there's myriad actresses to choose from here. So I'm like, well, great. I'll be a stand-in. That's awesome. So I go back in. I do the same process, deprive myself of sleep, did the whole makeup fit, and I go in. And also, I should mention, because the scene that they had me do was one where my character was getting evicted. This is not in the film. They ended up changing the character a bit. But at this point, she's being evicted. So it was a very emotional, crying scene. So I went in there crying, like from the second I got out of my car to the audition room, signing in because you got to sign in your name and
Hmm.
your number, sobbing. And then you're sitting on the couch. You're waiting for them to call your name. Liz Priestley, I'm here. And I go in and I need my whole scene. And thank you so much. And then I go out to my car and I'm done. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
now this is the second time that I've done that.
Yeah.
And so I go in and I think there was I there were more people in the room the second time. I cannot remember for the life of me who was there, but I know there was like 4 people in the room, and I was just like, "That's interesting." Um, I go in, do my thing, go home, and I'm like, again, if nothing else, maybe they'll be like, she could be a stand-in. Then a couple of days later, I get another phone call, and they say you have a third callback. Now, I've read that there are people who have had to audition for roles 6, 7, 8, 9 times.
Hmm.
Idris Elba, when he auditioned for The Wire, had to do it, I think, 4 or 5 times. So at this point, I'm like, are they really considering me? Because you don't do all this for a stand-in. So I kind of probed around, did my questioning, and I found out actually there was a little bit of a fight going on. Not a fight, that's an exaggeration, but it was really the director had seen my video. Presumably, Idris had also seen the video because he's an executive producer on this.
Hmm.
But they had seen my video, and the director was like, I like her. I want to go with her. And the producers were like, we should maybe bring in a celebrity so we can guarantee butts and seats. Because at this point, the pandemic was not even a thing, right?
Yeah.
So he's like, I think we should bring in a name. And the director was like, we go with her. I'm going to the last audition. I'm going to meet her. And that got back to me. So at this point, I freaked out just a little bit because I was
Hmm.
like, oh, holy crap. Like, for real, for real? So, and then at this point, I got word too that the character had changed a bit. And they redirected her from sort of this lost, like, addict, kind of more of the cliche type of thing that we've seen
Hmm.
to this professional, nurse, a mom who's just at the end of her rope, who just doesn't know what else to do,
Hmm.
which is more in line with the source material, which is the book Ghetto Cowboy. And I thought, yeah, great, that I can do that. I also should mention, I never said this the last time, but I also changed my speech pattern for these auditions as well. I didn't go in speaking like this because again, the way she was written at that point, she was
Hmm.
very, very urban. She's a Detroit native, and the dialogue was written in a dialect that I don't naturally speak. So I watched 10 hours of this girl on YouTube and I gotta email her sometime. I keep forgetting to do this. I watched her videos. She reviews episodes of Love and Hip Hop, among
Okay.
other things. But I watched her reviews of Love and Hip Hop Hollywood for 10 hours straight so that I could copy her speech pattern. And so when I went in to do the lines, I was not speaking this way, which I love. And there's a little bit of that still in the movie. My speech pattern is a bit different. So I'm glad I did it. But yeah, I went all out for this because I just was like, oh, I'm really up for this? Oh, okay. Now's my chance. Let me show them what I can do. Anyway, I went in that third time. I did the thing, and I came back out of it, and I was like, I feel good about it, but we'll see.
Hmm.
And then it was like the next day, they called me and they were like, "You got the part." It's like so weird. I'm still like, I can't say it with a straight face because I'm still just like, what?
That's like your first role on film, correct?
Yeah, yeah,
And you want to let the fans know the name of this title because we're gonna reveal
yeah.
something.
It's Concrete Cowboy, starring the great and wonderful and super attractive Idris Elba, and the equally talented and awesome, and I'm not going to say attractive because I play his mother, and that would be weird. Caleb McLaughlin, who so we bonded. Caleb, myself, and the director Ricky Staub.
Hmm.
We all bonded because for all of us, in some way, this is our first film. This is Caleb's first film. It's my first film, and it's Ricky's first feature film as a director. So we had a few moments, on set where we'd be like, "Are you super excited at this? Can you believe this is happening? Can you believe this?" This is like, it was so cool that I even felt like I was included in this. You know that, right? Like I'm not. But yes, Concrete Cowboy, shot in Philadelphia and starring the real life Fletcher Street Sables Cowboys. Real life cowboys, yes. And that was the cool thing about this, besides the fact that it's Idris Elba and Caleb McLaughlin and Method Man for all you rap fans out there. I think people are going to be very much blown away by his performance in this, because it's not a funny, like ha 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 man roll. It's not like that at all. He's got some acting chops, and it's very awesome. But no, I'm from Philly, born and raised, and I didn't know that the Black Cowboys were an actual thing.
Hmm.
And when I got cast in this movie, I had to do a little, deep dive to really kind of learn about it. These guys have been here since the Civil War, and not just in Philly, but in major cities all over this country. And nobody knows about them, which is a
Wow.
shame. And so, because, among a lot of other things, we've been sort of whitewashed out of our own history. And so, one of the reasons everyone involved is so excited about it is because we're really shining a light on an actual group of people whose whole mission is to give kids a place to go that keeps them off the streets. That's their whole reason for being. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And so for us to set this movie in a real life setting like that, and to use those cowboys as cowboys in our movie, including Mil Pradis, is a lead role in the film, who's got a phenomenal storyline, and I don't want to give it away because it's so good. But Mill is a Fletcher Street cowboy. He had no acting experience. So,
Here's the one question I'm curious about. How has the coronavirus impacted this movie now?
well, I think it's my fault. I think I jinxed us, because
Oh.
when we were shooting this,
Hmm.
people were asking me, "Oh my gosh, Liz, are you like excited your parents are going to be able to see your face in a theater?" And I would jokingly say, "Well, just my luck, it'll probably end up on Netflix or something like that." And then Corona happened, and theaters started shutting down left and right. And there was a big question as to where would this movie go. I mean, the premiere even was like, is there going to be a premiere? There
Hmm.
was, and I missed it because Corona. So that was a bummer. We were the plan was a red carpet premiere with horses, because it's
Hmm.
never been done. And, it was like, oh, we got to scrap that. We got to scrap this. We got to scrap that. So, I still haven't even seen the movie. And this was shot August 2019. I've seen 30 seconds of this movie.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which is, I mean, I've got people being like, did you make this up? Were you really making this up? Because we would have heard about it by now. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
yeah, it changed everything. Nobody knows anymore if and when theaters are going to be back open. And I was right, this will be on Netflix. I just don't know when. I don't know when yet, but so it definitely, it's, like every other industry on the planet, it took a hard hit. But the silver lining there is, Netflix is probably the best scenario you could hope for in a time like this, because everybody's home. Just about everybody has Netflix. It's like one of those kind of staples. And so, in that sense, I'm really excited, because I hope, it's now everybody has the opportunity to see it. So many more people have the opportunity to see it, rather than spending, a trip to the movies anymore is like $50 if you want to make it a fun experience, right? Now for $12.99, you can just watch it whenever you want on Netflix. So yeah, it definitely changed how this is gonna come out. But like I said, I think it's the best out of a bad situation. I mean, Netflix is pretty. When it was a question for a few weeks where it was gonna land, I was like, please be Netflix, please be Netflix, please be Netflix, and
Yeah.
it is. So I'm like, I'll take it.
Yeah, and congratulations, because now, like you said, we're all going to be able to see the movie, and
Mhm.
like I said, I'm excited to see it. Um,
Yeah.
uh, how has Corona affected you with all of, going, as far as going on auditions, or, movies that are being made, or television, or anything like that.
For every production that you hear about that starts again, then
Hmm.
it's like it seems like days or weeks later you're hearing that they're shutting down again because of a positive case. So it's been a lot of stop start, it seems like, um which is really frustrating,
Hmm.
really frustrating. And yeah, I mean, auditions before corona, it would be like half the time I would be in New York, so I'm taking the train up there and back.
Hmm.
That's an expensive thing if you're doing it several times a week, to go all the way up there to say hello and then go back because that's the only line that you had. You know what I mean? So that was a lot. And now I mean, you can't see it, but I have a whole setup at my house. I had to get, the backdrop, the lights, the nicer camera,
Hmm.
microphone equipment, all that stuff so that I can do it from my house, which is great in some ways, but also it's annoying in a lot of other ways because you really, I think in the beginning when people were starting to do their auditions from home, casting people were a little more, understanding, like it's okay if it's not the best quality, like we know it might be blurry, it's okay. Now
Hmm.
it's like your video is blurry and you're like, "What?" Because it's on my iPhone, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah, yeah.
now you got to be the pro, you got to be your own cameraman as well as the actor, and you got to be a director too. And and I've become very adept at using like iMovie to edit stuff now. So yeah, I mean, it's weird doing auditions from home, and uh you miss that interaction, with
Hmm.
people. Like I said, Diane Heary, I used to see her like once a week,
Hmm.
and I haven't seen her in months, and it's like I miss that interaction of going into a place. Hey, how's it going? Um, it is convenient. It is nice that I'm
Hmm.
like, well, I've got an audition at 10, or I have to turn that tape in by 3 p.m. I could do it at 2:30. That's enough time. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
there's a convenience there for sure, but it also, I mean, it is a bit sad because I think it's lost something in the social distancing part of it. I'm
Hmm.
just nervous that, going forward, will there be such a thing as a um fully healthy or fully safe set to work on? It just
Yeah.
doesn't seem like that's a thing right now. It seems like every one of the ones that I've heard of that have gone back to work have had to shut down again at some point because of a positive test.
Oh,
So
wow. Yeah.
um I know that they've been scrambling to figure out how to take the precautions and the safety measures, but it just
Hmm.
seems like for everything that they try, there's always one or two cases that slip through. So I don't know how it's gonna work, and it makes me nervous. I don't want to risk my life to make my art. You know what I mean?
Actually, I want to go back to the Concrete Cowboys.
Hmm.
What was it like working with Idris? What was it like? How
Oh
was
my
he?
gosh, he's exactly as cool and as charming and as sweet as you think he is.
Hmm.
He's I met him and he was just grinning at me on a horse. Like it just doesn't get any better than that. When you're on a horse and you look over and there's Idris Elba on a horse, shirt open, just grinning at you. No, he was a sweetheart. He was a sweetheart. I had about a day and a half with him, and I got to chit chat with him a little bit. We were kind of laughing it up. I was teasing him about being a DJ and a rapper now, and he was just like, "Meh." But no, he was lovely. He's absolutely lovely. When you're standing up, I got to get quite close to him, and when you're standing in front of him, it's like I'm gonna fangirl out over Idris Elba. It's like otherworldly. I swear, you're standing there and you just hear "Ah," coming from somewhere. I don't know, but No, he's great, and he was so very gracious to me. He was like, what have I seen you in? Where would I know you from?" And I was like, "Oh no, this is my debut. Like, this is it." And he just was like, "I get to be in your film debut?" And I just was like, "Oh my god, sir. My lovely wife is standing right out of frame, so I can't, you know." And she was very nice too. And that was fun too. Shooting with Idris Elba in Philly is an experience because just out of frame of those shots that you'll see in the camera are like 100, you know, women from Philadelphia just there just to get a glimpse of the man, right? They're just
Hmm.
there just to be like, "Idris, I love you. I want to have your babies," you know. And watching him kind of work with that was really funny. And then when we would be doing our scene and we'd have to start from the beginning, and where I started was not near him, so I'd have to walk to him, and he'd
Yeah.
have to walk kind of further away. And I'd be taking my walk, and you'd just hear all these women being like, "Who that? I don't recognize her. That ain't Kerry Washington. Why she get to touch him? I don't like her. Why she standing so close to Idris?" And I'm just like, "I am supposed to be here." So that was really fun. I mean, it was hysterical, and he would just kind of smile away. Like, he's awesome. He and uh, he and Method Man. I know for one night when they were shooting like around the campfire, and we had to hold for weather or whatever. And this was like, I mean, mid-August, so you know, in Philly, I don't know if it's like that where you are, but mid-August in Philly is like prime mosquito weather. So we were all pretty miserable
Hmm.
outside. And it's like 3 in the morning, and they're sitting there with the Cowboys, and they're just like, he and Method Man just freestyle rapping, telling stories from the industry, just like talking to the guys. It was the coolest. Like, it was just so cool. Like, at one point you have to stand there and be like, Idris Elba's sitting around a campfire rapping with Method Man, and I get to be here to witness it. This is my life now. This is great. He's awesome.
Before I let you go, there's a few things I want to do. Number one, I want to thank publicist Steve Joyner. Uh,
Steve!
Steve is a great, great, great human being.
We love Steve.
You you can find his stuff on Facebook, S-J Network. If you have a podcast or anything like that, he's the guy to talk to. He can help you get all sorts of interviews. And I want to thank Steve because he helped me do this interview today with Liz Priestley, which has been really awesome. Liz, before I let you go, I have this little tradition since I have to do all these interviews right now via like Skype and Zoom and all these like video chats because of Corona.
Yeah.
Has anyone ever asked you to take a virtual selfie?
No.
Okay. Uh, would you like to be in one?
I would love to be in one.
All right.
I think that is the coolest idea, yo. I
I'm
got
gonna
some crazy hair happening, but you know, I
I'm
didn't
gonna
try
flip
anything
my
crazy.
camera here.
Okay.
3, 2, 1. And that is a virtual selfie.
I think that is the dopest thing. I've never heard anybody do that, and I'm like, it's such like a simple and yet cool idea. I'm fanning myself. I'm very hot. That's such a cool idea.
Thank you. You
I'm
know,
gonna take virtual selfies with everyone now.
yeah, it's gonna be like my I'm gonna have like a wall of fame on my wall of everyone that I've done these with. So you're gonna be going on my wall. Liz, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to speak with me today. I had a blast. This was a lot of fun. And I hope that, we can do this again down the line before I end up seeing you on E and all the big time stuff.
Bring it out. Put it out in the universe. Yeah, no, I would love to come back anytime.
Thank you. Well, thanks again. I had a blast. And fans, thanks for tuning in to tonight's episode.